Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on September 28th, 2021 at approximately 6:56 a.m. PST. Now, this video is one that I was asked to take a look at, which revolves around some of the movies I've seen, some and what I think of them. Now, I'm going to start off with the easy part. Okay, where it comes to some of the races I've dealt with. The best movies that I've looked at. Okay, the first would be Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the original, starring Sigourney Weaver. Okay, now in the last scene in the last short sections of scenes there, they had a whole bunch of little people lined up at the top of the top of the ramp, and one really gangly chap in the back. Now, the little guys are your Zeta Reticulum Greys, and that is no doubt, in my opinion, the best rendition I've ever seen of them. Okay, the tall guy in the back is a controller. Now, the Greys are the ones that have built the hybridization program, but that movie showed very well the way that they operate, the way that they are. The little guys are the scientists. They're the ones that do all the research. They're the ones that do the collections and what have you. The controllers are the directors, as it were. Okay, they're the ones that decide who gets picked up, what type of people they're picking up, what they're researching on. Much like in a research facility on Earth. The director says, this is what we're going to research, assigns it to a bunch of different scientists, and they go out and do the research. Now, that would be the first one. Now, I have done a video on the Greys themselves, so I'm not going to go any further into that. But the next one I'm going to talk about is the original Alien, okay, starring Sigourney Weaver. Now, the alien race they show with the domed head there, okay, that alien is as close to a Chick-Chock as I've seen. Now, the big difference between the Chick-Chock and the alien in that movie is the extendable jaw. That is, from what I saw, that is creative license. Okay, yes, they do have acid. Yes, they do have the sharp teeth and the whole 9 yards. And in case you hadn't figured out, they are carnivorous. Okay, so when you take a look at that, okay, they are a real nasty little race. And yes, they do in fact use living hosts in order to, it doesn't necessarily have to be human. But it's a little hard to get other races involved when you're dealing with the people of Earth. So when you take a look at that, the show Alien does show the Chick-Chock very nicely. Then we take a look at one that just came out recently called Arrival. The one that and Arrival had the big septipodal aliens inside the kind of an egg-shaped ship. Okay, now the septipods, in other words, they have 7 limbs. I don't call them legs or arms because they use them for everything. Okay. Now, the weird part about it is their entire system is built on 7 points. Okay, which is why they've got 7 legs. Every one of their limbs actually has 7 fingers. But that neat little, when you take a look at the way that they write, with the circular ink, the only problem with it is they don't just, and the way they showed it in the movie was they write on the glass window. The funny thing with the Udina is they don't write on a solid surface, which is why it is so hard to deal with. Because in their actual writing, they actually write in the air, or more often than not, in all fairness, because in the air it doesn't work well, but they write in the water. But because of the way they write, and this one is going to throw people for a loop, because of the way they write in the ocean currents, see, they write with triphasic, okay, meaning when they start to write, triphasic is it takes place past, present, and future. And their mind wraps around it very nicely. So when they write when that writing takes place, even in the water currents, it shifts gears. Okay. Much like smoke shifts gears. Okay. So when you're looking at that, that's their writing method. All of their stuff is done a little different, but the appearance is absolutely on the money. Okay, now if you take a look at with the Udina, with the show The Arrival, they are very much a peace-loving society, and they do look at things from Terran generations down the road. Okay, so did they get the approach and the attitude of the Udina right? The answer is yes. There's no question there from my standpoint. Okay, then we have Jupiter ascending. Okay, the reptilian they show there, okay, is a Tormenon. It is as close to a rendition of a Tormenon as I've ever seen. Okay, and their attitude was very right, and very much the viable option. Now again, these are, especially when you look at the movies. Okay, these are artistic interpretations as best as the producers could come up with, but they're very close to what you're looking at. Okay, now then we have, when you take a look at the other one that I watched, which was Predator. Okay, that critter with the opening jawline. Okay, that is your Maldok. Okay, now it's not absolutely perfect. I actually had an artist do a rendition of a Maldok. Okay, and if I had any clue at all how to actually show it on the screen, I would. I've got it written here. It is clear for me to use. I just don't know how to get it off of the computer to show you. So, in time, because I think, if I remember correctly, I've got the Maldocs listed in this reference manual. Just double checking to make certain. Yep, I do. I am in the process of getting races drawn for Races of the Worlds here. Okay, the Maldoc is one of the races I've already got drawn up, but the show Predator is very much an accurate rendition of the way they are. Yes, they are very combat oriented. And in all fairness, it depends on their leader as to how aggressive they are. And not all of them are that volatile. Okay, they do absolutely hunt. Okay, but when you take a look at the Predator, the way that they ignored the non-combatants, people that did not show aggression towards them, people that did not have a weapon, it's no challenge for them, so they just won't do it. Okay, they got that absolutely right. Now, this is the one that's going to throw people for a loop and a half. Now, on Earth, we have something called mice and rats and lemmings. They produce at a staggering level, and they are a major food source. Okay, now here's where things get a little screwy. Those of you that watched the original Star Trek, the original series, there was an episode called The Trouble with Tribbles. Okay. Now, those little fuzzy things that are actually born pregnant and eat a horrendous amount, produce like there is no tomorrow. But they are basically, for lack of a better way of putting it, they are the rats of Zeta Reticuli. Okay, they produce at a staggering rate and are a major food source for a lot of the plants and animals on that planet, including somewhere, and I forget exactly where, and I've been looking for it forever. There was another episode in the Star Trek series, and I don't in the Star Trek world, and I don't know whether it was the original Star Trek or one of the offshoots. Okay. But I seem to recall it being a live episode. Okay, so I don't think it was a video, and I don't think it was an animated version. But they had something that they called a tribble eater. Okay, which was another little critter, kind of like a land-based clam. Okay, land-based in as much as it opens up and swallows the tribble whole, and absorbs it that way, much like a clam or much like a starfish rather, where a starfish will open up a clam shell and then insert its stomach in to eat the clam. Well, the ecodal, okay, the econ are are what Star Trek called tribbles. The ecodal are the tribbles hunter. Okay. And again, you got to understand something about Zeta Reticuli. Zeta Reticuli is a very hostile planet. And I do not mean that the people are hostile. I'm referring to the planets. Okay. Now, the last one of the series I can think of right offhand that I know of, okay, would be a show called Descendants 2. Okay. And in it, and I'd have to rewatch it, but I've got a note here that says I obviously saw something in that movie that showed what a Berondi is. Now, a Berondi is a short little critter. I'm not going to go into it a lot. Okay, the Berondi and the Berondigar are short little critters. Many people would liken them to angry dwarves or goblins. Just real baseline people. Okay, and I will end up one day doing a video, and probably not that far down the road, on the Berondi. As a matter of fact, that's not a bad idea. I've got to get back to doing the races of the worlds. But Descendants 2 was a good movie for showing that. It only caught a glimpse of it. Okay, but these are just a couple of the movies that I've seen. That actually held that nicely. Now, it's funny, people have asked me if the Star Wars, if the bar scene in Star Wars was accurate. And the best I can tell you is, yeah, some of the races are, but the majority of them were, from my opinion anyway, the majority of those races were essentially great artistic creations to make the movie look good. Okay. But are they viable? Certainly. I mean, I have not met every race out there by any stretch. Okay, but these are some of the movies that I've seen that I personally have watched and looked at and gone, yeah, that fits. I'm still looking for others. I'm not much of, I don't watch much in the way of movies. Okay, and especially not many of the ones people call your mainstream comedies. Just not my bag. Okay, the movies I tend to watch personally are your science fiction, science fiction, science fantasy. I'm a strong fan, obviously, of the Tolkien genre of the Harry Potter series. Okay, Tolkien is by and far my favorite of the lot of them. Okay. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. Did I watch E.T.? Yes. I often got asked if the race that was E.T. was an actual race. And in all fairness, from my standpoint, the E.T. itself in the movie is a stylized, a very artistic, very family-oriented, if you will, creative rendition of a gray. Okay. That being said, that neat little issue of, he holds up his finger and goes, E.T. called home. The Greys don't do that. Okay. That's just not the way they work. Not from anything I've ever seen. Okay. But is it a good movie to watch? Absolutely. The other one, and they're not nearly as nice. Okay. And I'm going to have to see if I can find what the name is. Which is why I write it down. My memory does not work good for names at the best of times. But if I look at here we are. Bingo. There is another race, the Xenon, which are simply mechanoids. They are living metal. Okay. And if you ever watched the show, Batteries Not Included, really, really good rendition of what they're capable of. In all fairness, they're not that nice. Okay. And that in and of itself, I mean, were they built that? Do they take on that configuration? Yes, but it's sort of this way. Between Batteries Not Included and Transformers, you get an idea what the Xenon actually work like. Okay, some are decent, some are nasty. Some humans are decent, some humans are nasty. Applies to every single race. Okay. Amazingly enough, like your general tendencies with a lot of these races, the general tendencies are stable, but you do get variations in all of them. Okay. Even if you look at some of the most horrendous things, whoop, I have to put that on pause and hope I don't screw things up. Well, sorry about that. Kind of important little things happening around here on occasion. Anyway, hopefully I remember where I was. When you combine the concept of Batteries Not Included and the Transformers, you get a much broader version of what's going on, of the way things are. The way that the Xenon operate is they take concepts from other races, from other planets they've been through. Okay, it's not like they reproduce like people. They literally rebuild themselves. Okay, when they have a child, it is not a question of let's just have two people get together and have a child. They literally design their children. Okay, and just like on Earth, and on every other other planet, you cannot effectively lump an entire race in one bin and go, this is what they are. There are exceptions to every rule. Okay, the most violent race in existence, the most violent society of humans, will have, in all likelihood, a pacifist. And in other words, somebody that isn't interested in fighting, somebody that's interested in building or in making connections. Okay, it comes from all walks of life.
15 seconds remaining.
Well, didn't need that. I forgot to shut the phone off. So, welcome to live recording. When you're dealing with live recording, okay, the reason I call it live is because when I'm done, all I do is double check and make sure that I got the date and time right, and then I post it as is. Every now and again, things get a little sidetracked. That'd be one of them. But that being said, okay, when we're looking at those are a couple of other videos that actually work very nicely. Oh, that's where I was going originally. I'm very much, I do tend to watch the types of movies I tend to focus on are your science fiction, science fantasy. I do watch things like, like the medieval movies, that sort of thing. Yes, I will watch some comedies, but the reality of it is, for me, most of what people call comedy, I don't find funny. When you're making comedies based on, embarrassing people or hurting people, and a comedy where it calls people out or it makes fun of people, I don't find it personally funny. Okay, I do have a tendency of watching some of the more intriguing war movies. Like, for instance, I remember watching the original show Red Dawn, where it showed a bunch of people from different walks of life working together to overcome a common complication. Kind of like I do watch natural disaster movies. Come on. I am so hoping that I did not butcher this video, because I'm not going to go back through it and check. But I do watch natural disaster movies to see how people to watch how people work together. And here's the funny part about it. Okay, in every one of the natural disaster movies, invasion movies, all of that, people don't go around checking with each other to see to see who you voted for or what color your skin is. Well, that's not entirely correct. In one movie, and I think it was a volcanic movie anyway. It wasn't Dante's Peak. I think it was called Volcano. But on the whole, people do not look at you if you're trying to get help or if you're in trouble, especially in a natural disaster. The reason I watch them is because it shows people from every walk of life pitching together, regardless of what they are, and working towards putting things together. This is one of the appealing things when you take a look at Star Wars. Okay, is they've got a whole pile of different races, okay, from all over the place, and they're all working together. Now, granted, there are different sides. You got the nice people, you got the bad people. Sorry, if you're having a movie, it's got to have a protagonist and an antagonist. Okay. Even in life, you get the same thing. There's going to be conflicts. But the thing is, if you keep an open mind, the reason that I like these types of movies is it shows people working together to actually accomplish a common goal. So I mean, these are just some of the movies that I've been watching that I pay attention to. Okay. Now, aside from those movies, I'm just trying to think if there's actually any others that I've seen that were really good. I am, the movies like The Fast and the Furious. Those movies I do tend to enjoy, but that's because they're high paced. Okay, nothing like a good chase scene in a movie. But I've always held violence itself is a good thing in books, in movies. Okay, in mutually agreed upon sports events, things like boxing, MMA. If you're into that sort of thing, if it's mutually agreed upon, then absolutely, I've got no problem with it. Do I go out of my way to watch sports of any kind? No, I really don't. Okay, I just don't bother. But then I didn't develop that competitive streak that many people my age did. Of course, that had to do with my own medical issues. Okay, let's face it. If you've got a bad leg and you're epileptic, you just don't do a lot of running. Okay. You also don't do a lot of sports if you can't gauge between where your hands are and where the end of a bat is. If I ever hit a ball when I was playing baseball, it was pure luck. Okay. I just wasn't good at it. But that said, do I watch a lot of movies? I quite often will have a movie running in the background. Like, for instance, the X-Men I've read, many of the Marvel movies, I'll leave run in the background. Okay. I also watch for some of these ones, like I think it was Stranger Things was actually a really enjoyable movie. Showed some interesting things. Come to think of it, now that I'm thinking about it, one movie that I watched that was absolutely brilliantly done, although they got a little carried away on the size, and you'll love this one. And I just want to double check and make sure I get the name right. Let's just go back to this funny book. Where are we here? Trying to remember what the heck they were called. Gotta be. Oh yeah, if you want, there's another movie that I watched. Right, a movie called Near Dark. Near Dark was a vampire movie that never actually. And by the way, vampires, also known as shadow walkers. Okay, very good movie. They never used the term vampire, but that's what they were, and they blend in extremely nicely. You know, So what I'm looking for here is what the actual name is of one interesting little race. There we are. The Korlock. Now, the Korlock are an amoeba. Okay, essentially. a lot bigger. But the movie I was referring to was way back in either the late 50s or the early 60s. There was a horror show came out called The Blob. Now, when you take a look at The Blob, that is a Corlock. Okay, that's the way they operate. They will pretty much eat whatever's available. Okay, if it's organic. And again, they did a beautiful rendition. They just took creative license and turned it into this monstrosity. A huge one. It'd be like seeing a human born that hit 30 feet tall. Okay, they just don't get that size on a normal base. Okay, are there races that do? The answer is yes. But these are some of the movies that I've watched over the years. Okay, now that said, okay, understand. Like I said at the beginning, these are movies that give a good rendition of what people are. Another one that was really good and showed a lot of potential to it was Starman. Now, when I watched Starman, I cannot tell you what race it was. Okay. But I can tell you that that's the way that many of the races are. And I don't mean they're bipedal. Actually, in all fairness, very few of the races actually look like humans. Okay. But, when you're dealing with movies, you have to sort of realize you're trying to get something to work. Okay. Now, there is one, and I don't think it's in book one. The race in Star Wars, Jabba the Hutt, okay, is actually a real race, but do not ask me the name offhand. I've got it written down somewhere, and I'm just pulling a blank. But in all fairness, even when I'm working and I'm talking to people on the phone, I forget their name while I'm talking to them, which is why I write the names down. Now, with that in mind, because I do my best to keep these to a half hour, I'm going to bring this to a close now. Okay. But, like I said, subscribe to the channel. The big thing I return to do with this lifetime is to spread this message across existence to every entity out there that working together we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, that said, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. And I will talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.